Actually, this morning at the airport, someone asked me, why did you choose to go into mortgage? I said, you don't choose to go into mortgage. Mortgage finds you. I did this road trip actually from Pennsylvania to California, and I ended up in San Francisco.
Brokers, they don't usually have a big staff. They don't have marketing. They're kind of independent shop.
I had another epiphany almost where I felt like, okay, I feel like I've reached the ceiling again, but not just in a role, in just kind of marketing in general.
Those are the people that you had to go to when there was a problem that you needed to fix.
Actually, I was working with the lenders.
So talk a little bit about what the art of homeownership is.
Now I have to listen to people and what their pain points are and what their struggles are, and then we have to figure out like what can we provide to them to solve for this. Because I actually started at AIM in the office on March 10th, 2020.
No way.
And Philadelphia shut down the day after.
Welcome to the Mortgage Lab podcast, where we talk with industry professionals and industry adjacent professionals, where you get to learn a little bit more about what you need to know. And today on the podcast, I have a special guest with me that I think we've been friends for a year and a half now-ish or so.
Something like that.
She's somebody who gets to actually set a first. You're the first person who is also employed by NEO who gets to come to the podcast.
Oh, how exciting.
Please help me welcome Val Miller. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
First things first. So I know that you're on vacation, and you did make me promise in a very specific conversation that if you were going to come be on this podcast on vacation, that I had to make sure that the podcast was done with a mimosa. So I'm going to go ahead and pour you a mimosa.
So we just, round of applause for Tim living up to the hype, because you did it.
Well,
You're living your promises.
If you're just listening to this version, I'm currently opening a bottle of champagne, which could go horribly wrong. But if you snuck into the refrigerator and you shook that up, you were going to be in big trouble. So here you go. If you're listening to this, I'm pouring it into very high-class coffee diner mug. Yep. This is all you. There you go.
Is this a NEO coffee mug?
Sort of. That's a specific team-branded mug, but it's close enough.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's just going to be for a refill for you. How do you like your mimosas? Are you a half and half kind of gal? Or
pretty much so, yeah. Give or take.
I have judgments about people who go lighter than half and half, so that'll be good.
That's very fair.
I'm going to see if I can just spill this on lots of equipment. Good.
Yeah, let's
Now that we have burned at least like a minute and a half of our fantastic viewers time.
Now I'm ready.
Thank you for being here.
Cheers. Cheers with your empty coffee mug.
With my empty coffee mug? Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
This is fun. Thanks for coming. You have a unique story, and I don't think that it's dissimilar to the story that a lot of us have around NEO. But you took an interesting path to get to NEO, and I think that your story is kind of a microcosm of what a lot of us believed at different places, but we've kind of gotten here. So how did you get into mortgage originally?
Actually, this morning at the airport, someone asked me, why did you choose to go into mortgage? I said, you don't choose to go into mortgage. Mortgage finds you.
That's kind of true.
So I really didn't choose. Obviously, I accepted the job role, but at the time I had graduated college, maybe 10 months prior to this time. And I was working for an alumni who had his own marketing company for a little bit, like super just one-man shop. I was just like learning the marketing ropes, basically. He closed the company, shut it down, so that was no longer, I got 5 paychecks and was like, see you later, this is over.
Wow. That had some staying power. Okay.
I was still living at home at the time, so, kind of had some freedom. And I was like, you know what? I still had a part-time job that I was working.
Sure.
So I was like, I'm going to work for a while, and I'm going to travel for a bit. And I told myself, after I'm done traveling, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get a big girl, like a real job.
A real job. Okay.
So I did this road trip actually from Pennsylvania to California, and I ended up in San Francisco, and I got back, and I think when I was in San Francisco, I got a job from the Association of Independent Mortgage Experts. I had applied for a job. They didn't just, find me and call me.
They didn't find you off the road. Just said, hey, by the way,
they were like, she's going to be good at mortgage. I could just feel it.
Sure.
So I went back, set up an interview with them. I was like, it just seems like a cool culture. I wanted to live in Philly for some reason. And so I did. I took the job. I eventually got it. And it was, so the whole premise of the organization is basically you're like the backbone for mortgage brokers. Like they don't have as
Sure.
much structure as retail. So this
Right.
is kind of an organization that goes to bat for them for certain
Right.
things, provides resources. They have a lot of vendors that are approved within the organization. So just
Sure.
different resources and things like that.
So it's an organization, so let's simplify that a little bit. So an organization, because brokers, they don't usually have a big staff, they don't have marketing, they're kind of independent shops. They're like solopreneurs with 2 or 3 people that really work for individuals, right?
Right.
Okay. So then this organization, which is called
AIM.
right? So they provide additional layers of support for all these brokers.
Yep.
And this is what you were heading up in the marketing side.
Yeah, so I started out, I don't even know what my initial role was, to be honest. Actually, I was working with the lenders. So
Okay.
when a member would come to us and they were having, maybe it was like a certain loan file where there was a fire or they needed something escalated, I was in charge of escalations.
Okay.
So I would have a point of contact at each of our lenders and I would talk to them. So even now, sometimes I'll go to the events and stuff and I'll be like, oh, I used to email him all the time
Sure.
because it was the like designated person at that lender. So that's what I started doing. And then
Those are the people that you had to go to when there was a problem that you needed to fix.
yeah, and it wasn't anything like I was getting no backlash. You know, I was just
Right.
sending an email like, hey, this person that's our member, and they were really good to us. Like all of our lenders were great to us because we were kind of helping them out too.
Sure, yeah.
So it was a very there was no like conflict in my
Sure.
in my role, but I did then move to I think it was called like partnership engagement. So I was more working with the actual brokers, and I was trying to provide resources that kind of get a feel for like what are we hearing from the community that they need. And this was
Right.
really good with a marketing
From the
background.
broker community, right?
Yes.
Okay, yep.
It was really good with a marketing background though, because I'm like, okay, now I have to listen to people and what their pain points are and what their struggles are. And then we have to figure out like, what can we provide to them to solve for this?
Sure.
Which is really like a great marketing concept in general.
Right. Go listen. If you want to know
yes.
how to solve a problem, go listen to what the problem is.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So that was cool. And I got really close with a lot of the brokers. I still am like involved with them and talk to them to this day, which is cool. But that's really like, I was just submerged in the industry. And that's where
Yeah.
I learned a lot of just mortgage jargon and, you know, the language in general. Because I actually started at AIM in the office on March 10th, 2020.
No way.
And Philadelphia shut down the day after. And I was working from home for probably 4 months
no
after
way.
that. Yeah, so I
Baptism
was
by fire.
I mean, I had to learn everything on my own.
Right.
So
That's a
I
tough
was
industry to go into
forced.
when you can't be in location, overhearing conversations. Like, that's
Yes.
a really tough stretch. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
so where did it go from there for you? Because you clearly identified that you went out and listened and you found that there's a problem. So where did it go from there in your mortgage journey?
So then from there, the guys over at Art of Homeownership, because then I think I actually had a third leg. This was kind of brief, but at AIM, I was working with our vendor partners.
Okay.
So that's kind of just the different resources like Mortgage Coach and those types of companies in our industry.
Sure.
So we would like vet these companies, make sure that they were kind of approved, they were doing a good job.
Sure.
You know, they got our stamp of approval. Art of Homeownership was one of those companies. So I would work pretty closely with those guys, like help them market themselves to our members and get out there in the community. And I remember one of the owners came to me. He was my point of contact, and he was like, "Hey, I wanted to know if you have any friends with the same background as you, and the salary would be this, full benefits." Like, just went
Right.
off, and I was like, "I'll think about it."
Sure.
So that's what kind of led me to get in this circle, if
Right.
you will.
Well, so talk a little bit about what the Art of Homeownership is, because that's a massive
Yeah.
platform that you were providing to brokers who didn't really have a backbone.
Yeah. So the Art of Homeownership is it's an app where it's so much more than an app, so I hate to even say that, but
Sure.
you're basically giving a suite of tools to the end consumer, so
Right.
to homeowners,
Right.
helping them manage their home, manage their finances, and there was really a lot of training that went around that because it was really more of a business approach than it was just an app. Like we would train you how to implement this, how to have different conversations with your clients. It's so much more than just like, here's a tool to give your
Right.
clients.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And being at Art of Homeownership, I did a lot of the trainings. So it's kind of funny now because I know we'll get there, but like in my role now, I'm doing some of the things that I used to train on, and I had never once actually done them. So the audacity for me to sit there and train other loan officers is crazy. But
which is fun because I believe that's how I was first introduced to you, as you were doing trainings
Probably.
at the Art of Homeownership.
Yes.
And it was before I was at NEO. I was at another company, but I was an Art of
okay.
Homeownership member. This is fun because I never told you the story.
Yeah, I don't think I realized that.
So that was my first introduction to you because you were doing trainings along with Ryan Grant.
Yep.
And so that was the first time that I became familiar with Val Miller. So anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
So then
Full circle moment.
completely, right? So then so talk about what your role was at Art of Homeownership.
It was really marketing. But of course at a tech startup, you're not just marketing. Like there's a lot
Lots
of
of
hats
hats.
that
Yep.
you're wearing. So it was, we would go to trade shows, we would have the booths, which, aligns with marketing. But I would do a lot of interviewing our partners and like seeing, how they're using it. I would run the trainings. RG and I kind of like headed that whole strategy together.
Who's RG?
Ryan Grant, sorry. Sorry for those of you who don't know.
If you're familiar within the circle, we refer to him as RG. That's okay.
So that was a lot of fun because again, I got to know a lot of people, like going to those events, meeting people in person now, because that was like a whole different wave of my career.
Sure.
Because for the first year.
2 years later, you got to be introduced to these people and figure out how tall everybody is.
Exactly.
Which is a unique thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. There was a lot of curveballs there that I didn't expect.
Because when you
Shorter,
meet people
taller.
on Zoom, you just see them from like the navel up, and that's it.
You just assume things.
Yeah, correct.
Do they give off tall person energy? You don't know.
You don't really know at all.
But yeah, so that was a fun journey. So Art of Homeownership, I was mainly just marketing, but again, that kind of encapsulated a lot just because it was a tech startup. So it was
And the
fun.
attempt of Art of Homeownership was just to provide value beyond just like drive-through debt, right? It wasn't just here's your 30-year fixed mortgage with cheese. It was like this is about creating successful homeowners, not just trying to figure out what the best thing is for you right now. And that's a very unique and different value proposition that the industry really needed.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, good. So you are involved with the Art of Homeownership, and where do you go from there?
So I'm at the Art of Homeownership, and I think at one point I just kind of reached what I felt was my ceiling. Like I had done a lot at Art of Homeownership, and I didn't feel like I was really progressing up anymore. I was just kind of widening what I was taking on a little bit.
Sure.
And I remember going to the guys, and I was like, I actually, let me backtrack here. I didn't go to the guys first. I had gotten an opportunity that I was going to take. And I remember, I thought that it was just going to be a quick, like, hey guys, I'm putting my 2 weeks in and I'm going to be done here. And they were like, all right, well, nice working with you kind of thing. And it was absolutely not that way. And I mean, if you know, the Ryan Grants, the Danny Haranis, the Zach Cusacks, he was involved in there too. Great people that genuinely care about you.
Tremendous folks, yes.
Way more than most people in our industry, I would say. So that conversation did not go down like that. I remember them just saying, what do you feel like you're getting somewhere else? Like, what are you not getting here, and what can we do to solve that? And not once in that process was there any trash talking on the other company. There was no negative kind of like, Val, you shouldn't do this. It was all, what can we do to be better and help you?
Right.
And
which, having been through this process a little bit, that is completely unique. Because that is not the game plan for most folks when they find out they're going to be losing a key employee.
Right. So that was it was very humbling, first of all, because I was like, wow, these guys actually care about me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't even get the official offer from them, quote unquote, before I was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Sure.
So at that point, they had kind of set up this structure where I was working with Art of Homeownership and NEO. Because as we were talking earlier, I said at Art of Homeownership, I just feel like I was the kid that was on timeout inside, and I was just looking through the window watching all the other kids at recess, like having fun.
At NEO, yeah.
And because NEO it was so evident that it was this like super strong culture. I think when I moved over to Art of Homeownership, NEO was just starting.
It's true.
Because I remember like that whole kind of transition process of the guys moving from their other companies.
Sure.
So it was still a new company, but the culture and the people, it was just so, I was somewhat intertwined with them because we would go to the events and we would have the trainings. I was like, I want to be there.
Right.
So I did start to kind of do this half and half position where I was at Art of Homeownership, but then also doing some consulting, marketing work with some of the mortgage advisors over at Neo, which just was like dangling the bait in front of me
Of
more.
course, yep. Because Neo was already operating with basically just a rebranded version of the Art of Homeownership,
Yes.
right? All the
Yeah.
pieces were there. It's like looking at a Chevrolet versus a GMC, right? It's all out of the same parts bin.
Right.
It's just branded slightly differently.
Yep.
And so you could say that Neo was the GMC version, slightly higher scale
Yep.
than the Art of Homeownership, even though it was all the same pieces under the hood.
Yeah.
Right?
And at Neo, you also had the framework and the company to back you in having that same approach to business.
That is a big difference.
Because at other companies, it's so hard to implement when you don't have resources and trainings all the time.
That's okay. You did not damage anything. You haven't even had any of your mimosa, and you're already knocking
I know,
microphones over.
I'm a chatterbox too
It's
much.
okay.
So yeah, at that point, I was working half and half, and eventually we were kind of moving away from Art of Homeownership, and I got the word that I was going to be full-time Neo. So I eventually made the jump. I was full-time Neo, working on still the marketing side of things at this point.
Sure,
so
yeah.
up until like through this whole journey, I was always marketing. I don't want to like give too much away.
Which
Do you
is
have a
what you're
follow-up
really
question?
good at. I do have a follow-up question. So,
Okay.
so you go from working at the Art of Homeownership to then moving over to the Neo side, which you've always had a really excellent ability to repackage things on the Art of Homeownership side and the Neo side. But as you alluded to, one of the big problems with the Art of Homeownership and that entire value proposition is that you're really kind of doing it all on your own, right?
Yes.
That's a Herculean effort for a loan originator who is outside of Neo to try to take on. It's almost a 3-person job.
Yes.
So, but by the time you've gone and seen what could be possible, and by the time you believe that this is truly the right way to be treating consumers, it's really hard not to subscribe.
Yes.
Because you know what you could do for people, and that you know that it is about generational wealth, and it isn't about 1/8 of a point in rate. And you realize that the short-term decisions have magnifiers that run so long-term, right? At a certain point, you start looking inward and going, okay, this really is the right place to be. Pardon the interruption, but I wanted to share something with you. This video is sponsored by the Neo Experience app, and it's our way to help people no matter where they are in their homeownership journey. So whether you already have a home and you're looking to make a move, or whether you're just trying to get on the housing ladder, this app is going to give you a ton of tools to help you reach your housing goals. Now, to access it, you can visit www.homeownersuccessapp.com and sign up there completely free, or you can just check out the link in the description. If you're on your phone already, you can also visit the App Store and download the Neo Experience app, and then just use the activation code Humphrey to make it completely free for you. Thanks so much for watching. Now, back to the video.
It's
Okay, so
hard
you're-
to not feel that.
So you're peering through the window.
Yes.
You get to come now
I
play
get
at a
to
different
come
place.
over at Neo, yeah. And I was on the marketing team, and that was good. So like I did kind of, I had another epiphany almost where I felt like, okay, I feel like I've reached the ceiling again, but not just in a role, in just kind of marketing in general.
Sure.
Because I was like, I don't feel like I'm making an impact. I'm helping mortgage advisors market themselves to make an impact,
Right.
which is, yes, it's great. And I still felt like I was contributing to something. But I was like, I've been, again, kind of looking from the outside or from the inside out and watching people make such an impact and
Yeah.
really change people's lives. And I was like, I want to do that.
Right.
And I always kind of felt that way because, again, I'm helping people make an impact when I'm like, why wouldn't I just go do it myself? But making that jump from a full-time salaried position to being a full-time mortgage advisor is nearly impossible. So I just never really had a path or had an opportunity forward to go do that. And I didn't, I feel like I feel very knowledgeable about the industry. Like I
Right.
can talk to almost anyone and like make a case for myself. But at the same time, if you hand me a borrower and say like, put them in the right file and package it correctly, there's no way. I mean,
It's
there's
a lot
just,
to learn.
there's so many technical things about the industry that you don't get from just being in it. You have to be in it and just fumble through things.
Right.
So up until that point, again, I'm still in the marketing role, and I'm just not really feeling like my cup is full at that point.
Sure. You can go on with the spoiler now.
Okay. So people had known that I wanted
Yeah.
to be a mortgage advisor, and at
Long
this
term. This was
time,
your long term goal, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you see the writing on the wall. You're like, this is as far as I've been satisfied. Where do we go
yeah.
from here?
And actually, at this time, I kind of pivoted a little bit. I feel like I bounced around so much. But I was with Justin Padrone, Trevor Hammond, Eric Bible, and Darren McClellan. I was kind of working with all 4 branches and helping them with some business development,
Sure.
some marketing.
Yep.
There were some tough times in the industry, so they had to like
Sure,
shift
yeah.
me around a little bit. And I was super happy in that position. Great guys, like 4 great guys to work with.
For sure.
And again, they all kind of knew that I wanted more. And I'll never forget, Justin Padrone called me, and I was up in Pennsylvania. At this point, I was living in Florida. And he called me and said, my production partner just resigned today. And you're the first person I thought of. I want to offer you the position, but it cannot be a remote job.
Sure.
Like I
Sure.
have to have you in office.
And just to clarify, so the production partner position is somebody who basically works like alongside of a mortgage advisor just to kind of streamline the process, right? You're doing a lot of
Yeah.
document intake, you're doing document wrangling, you're setting up files a lot of times, you're doing
Yeah.
a lot of the work, less strategy and education and more like documentation.
Yeah. I always say our goal is to take as much work off of the mortgage advisor as possible so they can go get more business.
Right.
Like it's kind of the
Huge.
whole role. So he had asked me that, and I kind of knew right away. I was like, this is such a good move, but it's
Sure.
obviously scary. I'm moving from Florida to Texas. I'm like, I can't give an answer right now. So I'm like, well, give me a few days to think about it.
Sure.
And I just remember I wanted to bounce it off of a few people, and I talked to my parents, and I remember calling Ryan Grant, actually. I had said, do you have a second to just like talk this through a little bit? And I said, I know you can't give me the magic answer, but I just feel like I'm just so comfortable in the marketing role. And if you know Ryan Grant, telling him that you're comfortable is like telling a regular human being that you murdered someone.
Correct. You might as well have just told him that
Yeah.
you need to take that role.
Right. And he
yeah.
was like, you should absolutely run away from that role. Like, you don't want to
Yeah.
be comfortable. You shouldn't be in that. You want to be scared every day. Or not scared, but you want to feel like you have to show up with your A game every single day, or you're going to let people down.
Right.
And after that conversation, I was like, yeah, I have to do it. So I think I was up in Pennsylvania. I was there for a wedding for another maybe week and a half. And then I went back down to Florida, packed my stuff, and I was in Texas, I think 3 weeks later.
That's amazing. How different has it been for you to go from marketing a value proposition
Yeah.
to delivering on it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, so it's very rewarding because now I get to be a lot closer. Like, it's what I wanted all along. Like, I
Right.
wanted to be closer to the clients. I wanted to be involved in those impactful conversations. I will say, I mean, it's definitely been a challenge just going from the marketing mindset and the skill set of being
Sure.
in marketing where you're like creative and I don't really have structure in my day.
Right.
And now it is very just, which I do like to an extent because being all over the place and just not having structure is also hard. Like everything has its challenges. But I mean, I've taken on some of the dreams and goals calls for people
Which
that
is our initial call, right? As we
Yeah.
start talking to folks and figuring out what they want to do. That's the
Yeah.
kind of the first point of contact.
And that has been so rewarding for me. Like there have been a few times when borrowers came back and they were talking and like shopping around and they
Yeah.
were like, no, we want to go with you guys. And that was only after the initial conversation. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's cool because they do see our value and they see like, this isn't just a transaction. So being able to just have those conversations and also see the impact, it's like all of the challenges that are involved with the role, that makes it so worth it. Like it's
100%.
so rewarding.
That's my favorite meeting that we do. I love doing dreams and goals calls because there's so many
Yeah.
things that especially in my case, I like doing it with couples because a lot of times the questions that I'm asking, they have very different opinions on.
Yeah.
And they've really never had that conversation. So to get them not only on the same page, but rowing in the same direction, it's kind of my like goal number 3 or 4 within that is let's figure out what you want to do and let's make sure that you guys are clear between each other.
Yeah.
So that when we come back for the next conversation that this is a little bit smoother.
Right.
And it's absolutely a ball. I love it. I love
Yeah.
watching the human dynamics in that.
Yes, it's fun. It's asking really good questions. And not a lot of people in our industry are asking the right questions. they're asking, and that's one of my favorite parts of it is, tell me about your experience with the other lenders that you've talked to. And you just sit and listen. And they say, well, they told us about different loan programs and like what the rate would look like and, you know, kind of an estimate on cash to close. And I'm like, they probably sent you a link to an application, you filled it out, and then they told you, you know, estimated numbers. And they're like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And I was like, that's, you know, you get to tell them that's not how this is going to be, which is cool.
Right.
And then the light bulb goes off and they kind of see the difference.
100%. And that's, we all end up at Neo Home Loans because we all, at some level, know that that is not serving the customer in the best way possible, right? This has been, here's your 30-year fixed mortgage with cheese for far too long.
Yeah.
And opportunities are missed. And people don't make decisions well when they're stressed because they're clearly stressed because they're looking for a new home. So something in their life has changed, right?
Right.
Whether it's, you know, marriage, kids, divorce, whatever it is. And when they don't have sound guidance and they don't have confidence, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Or they're pressured into a bad decision because they have a lack of information. And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
And being able to just stand so far and away apart from what everybody else is doing, where it's a 15-minute phone call and here's an application link, is definitely rewarding.
Yeah. And it becomes so, I mean, people think of mortgage advisors as being in sales, but at that point, we're not sitting there selling anything. We're just helping people.
Right.
Like that's true. And you can say that you're helping people rather than just hand them debt. So it's just like a whole mindset shift, which is really cool. It makes it so easy.
And you can see the difference in families too. Like specific cases where, you know, somebody will fight and scratch and claw to get into their very first home, right? And what it does for them because they're not moving every 2 years and now their kids have a sense of place and they've got, you know, community around them and you can just see the difference in their kids. And that's such an amazing thing in a microcosm that we get to do on a bigger scale, right? And so when people have good advice, they feel more confident about doing it because they could have just as easily not done it.
Yes.
And that's the other point that we get to talk about in Dreams and Goals. Like, here's what you could do, but what happens if you don't?
Right.
It's linear. You're deciding to do something or not to do something.
Yeah.
And either way is okay, but you need to know what the ramifications are of both.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think that that's the next step that you get to if you don't ask the right questions.
Yeah. It's just making sure that they're fully educated and letting them, because at the end of the day, it's their decision, of course,
Right.
but it's making sure you're making a fully educated decision rather than making a decision based on emotion and just fear.
Or input from people that might not have a good handle.
Yeah.
Because
I always say the great Uncle Joe that bought a home 15 years ago.
you did it one time, and now all of a sudden he wants to weigh in on what your closing costs should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's my favorite. I love Uncle Joe. Oh, my goodness. Where do you want to go? What is your big vision for yourself now?
Oh, my
This
gosh.
has really nothing to do with any education at this point, but I want to know just, you have made such amazing progress between being on the marketing side and really communicating that there is value to delivering value. What do you want to do?
Yeah, when you word it like that, it's I haven't really thought about it, but that's cool. So I haven't thought about it coming full circle like that,
Sure.
but of course I've thought about what I want and goals. I definitely, I mean, I want to be a mortgage advisor full time, and that's the intent. Like, you know, Justin knew going into this that that's what I wanted.
Sure.
So his full intent is like, I want to pour into you. I want to make you be better. And that's what I want to do. So, you know, it perfectly aligns, and that's of course going to be a process. There's a lot to learn.
Sure.
And I'm discovering that, but it's been, again, it's one of those humbling moments where I felt for a while like I had marketing down. Like I was very confident in doing it. And I could figure almost anything out. But now I'm in this place where it's like, I'm learning new things every single day. And sometimes I get huffy puffy when Justin tells me something new because I'm like, there's so many things to learn. It's like so frustrating. But I want to get to that point where I'm the one that is, first of all, I love like the marketing and business development side of things too. I still definitely have a passion for that.
Sure.
So having kind of my own little business where I'm going out and getting new realtor partners and like making an impact on their business too,
Right.
and being able to keep just kind of spreading our cause and impacting more consumers. That's my goal. And just being around people like yourself and our other colleagues at Neo, it's like learning how to have the money conversations like we always talk about.
Yeah.
That's something that I've been really nerding out on. So it's just, as I'm in this position, it's cool because I get to figure out like what I want my business to eventually look like when I get to that point. Because
Sure.
I'm very aware that now is not the time, but it's still like you can never be too far ahead, you
Yeah.
know? So it's kind of cool right now. I'm almost in like planning phase, but eventually the goal is to be full-time mortgage advisor.
You know what's so cool about what you just said is you get huffy and puffy about learning something new because there's so much that's new to learn, right? What I've always tried to remind myself is that when we're working with a client, that's what they feel every single phone call.
Yeah.
It's always something new.
Yes.
And they could absolutely be huffy and puffy with us
Yeah.
because we're teaching them so much new content or so many new concepts, right?
Yeah.
Because we're taking it from like, here's your mortgage, here's your payment, to speaking about money and thinking about generational wealth in a totally different manner.
Yep.
And that's humbling for me because every now and again I'll forget that.
Right.
And that's my fault. There's a sticky note on my monitor that reminds me to be new.
Nice.
And I have to because otherwise it's really easy to get caught up in jargon, which is a terrible industry-wide habit, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to get around that is even better. But
Yeah.
Good for you. Thank you for coming because what you are is a microcosm of how everybody starts to get introduced to NEO, seeing that the industry could be more, and then by some way, shape, or form transitioning to actually giving more.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool thing. And I won't say it's 100% universal across the entire company, although it sure feels that way. I just can't say that because I don't know everybody. It seems to be the one thing that we all have in common is we all want to just change this industry for the better.
Yes. It's so, like the one thing, we were in Vegas a few months ago and just that whole week, I can't even count how many times I was like, we just have such good people here. There's very few people that you meet and you're like, they shouldn't be here. You know, like they don't belong or fit in. But that's also a result of us being very protective of our culture
It's
and our
true.
energy. We are not just like putting out to the masses and being like, oh, come to Neo Home Loans. Like that's not what we want. We're very selective and definitely attract the right audience. So it's just cool to see that turn into something like the culture and the community that we have because it is such a, like it's the highest level in the industry, I believe.
I couldn't disagree. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Do you want to
Thanks
play
for having me.
a quick game of this or that?
Oh, sure.
Did you peek at my note cards?
No,
when,
I didn't.
Okay, all right.
I'm a very honest person.
All right, I like it. So I'm going to give you this or that.
Okay.
And you have to choose quickly.
Okay.
And it's not timed, but it should be. So, all right, quickly. This or that. This is just going to help people get to
Okay.
know you a little bit more.
Okay.
So thanks for coming on vacation. Okay, this or that. Big city or small town?
Small town.
Morning or evening?
Morning.
I knew that answer. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
Thunderstorms or snowstorms?
Thunderstorms.
Breakfast food or dinner food?
Breakfast food.
Tacos or sushi?
Tacos.
Pickleball or golf?
Ooh, pickleball.
Pack early or pack last minute?
Pack last minute.
Yeah.
It was funny. All my friends were like sending pictures of their luggage already packed, and I was the first one to leave, and I never got a picture because I finished packing this
Of course.
morning.
Did you
So,
just send a picture of your dresser? You're like, some of that will be in there.
yeah, just use your imagination.
Perfect. Thank you for coming.
for
Where would
having
you
me.
like folks to find you? You want to plug your podcast?
Sure. So Trevor Hammond and I have the podcast Mortgages, Money, Life, where it's still a lot of these concepts. So Trevor's one of us at NEO, and we talk a lot about mortgages, money, and life. I mean, that pretty much sums it up.
It does indeed.
And of course on Instagram, the real Val Miller.
Are you changing your handle again, or you settle on
No,
that one?
I'm gonna
Okay.
really stick with that one because I'm always gonna be the real Val Miller.
I think it's a wise
know?
choice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'll leave all of Val's information in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, please stay curious.
Love it.